All right, look, man. I don't care if it's about rappers, singers, albums. I don't care if your name is Rolling Stone, Billboard, or it's on some random thread on Reddit. All of your top 50, 100, 200 lists, all of those suck. And you know why. It's 14:30. You know what time it is. Let's get to it. So, at the time of recording, Billboard had to remember which one it was. Billboard is in the midst of doing a top 50 rappers of all time list. It's to celebrate 50 years of hip hop, which is noble, but immediately, as soon as you look at the list, because they're dropping them in increments, so they're like 1 week they're doing like 10, then the next week they're doing the next 10 until they get all the way up to 50. Immediately, as soon as you see the top 10, it already starts discussion. And we're going to get into some of that discussion. But before we get into it, before I get too far into it, make sure you like this video, share it with a friend, and subscribe to the channel. I want to say a quick thank you to everybody that has been supporting the channel. We just hit our first 600. The last video, rap lyrics in court, and the reel, the reel that came out afterwards, uh, that blew up on TikTok and on YouTube. I really appreciate the discussion. Whether you agree with me or disagree with me, just the love and support that I feel just for the fact that people are taking the time to check out these videos and wanting to give their opinion and have this healthy discussion about whatever we're talking about. Like, I really appreciate that. And make sure you subscribe to the channel if you haven't. I know a lot of people who watch my videos, especially that last one, were not subscribed. So make sure you subscribe and leave a comment below. I love having those discussions with people who, whether you agree or disagree with me, whether you're angry about what I said, you're upset about what I said, or you have some facts to bring to the table to dispute what I said. I'm all ears. I really appreciate the discourse. Um, but yeah, let's get back into these lists. Yeah, so like I said, Billboard is in the midst of dropping their top 50 list, and this is coming right after Rolling Stone did a top 200 singers list of all time across different genres, different generations. Uh, from the past, present, the future. It's just, there was a lot of people, and immediately, just like with the Billboard list, you look at the list and you see something wrong with it. And now, I know why these lists. I try to go ahead and like kind of get the obvious out of the way when I do these kind of discussions, because we already know why these lists are being put together. We already know why uh, these top 50, 100, 200 lists are being put out there, is to create conversation and increase engagement. Because if it was a super safe list, if it was a super agreeable article, everybody would just kind of look at it and like nod their head and just keep it moving. But when you have issues with the placement of certain artists or certain albums, or whatever the topic is being left off, it's the same with video games and movies and TV shows. Just whatever you could kind of quantify into a list and put out there as these are the definitive top whatever lists. It's always gonna cause like these kind of conversations, and it's gonna generate revenue, engagement, clicks, all that stuff for these websites and these publications. You know what I'm saying? So I can go ahead and get the obvious out of the way, because before anybody gets in the comment section and say obviously they're putting these lists together because they want to get people talking, I know that. And honestly, this conversation isn't just about these publications and the list that they put together. It could really apply to any discussion about the top basketball players, the top rappers, the top albums, movies, TV shows, whatever. It could all kind of go, they could all be in a discussion, whether it is, these publications, or it's just some random dude on Twitter deciding to put out like these lists. Like not too long ago, even before that, when people were wrapping up for the top 2022 rappers, albums, movies, best and worst, all that kind of stuff, right? I remember B Dot, and he always puts out these like top rapper lists every year. And like I know, B Dot just not like a random guy, but just the way he puts it together, it's on like some kind of note, like the note app on your iPhone. He just puts it on there, takes a screenshot and tweets it out. It's kind of like anybody could do that. Anybody. It's not even like somebody wrote an article for this. It was just a guy on his phone, maybe thinking about all the artists that he enjoyed. Like I do the same. By the way, I'll leave a little icon card at the top if you want to check out my top favorite albums of the year. But when B Dot did his, for some reason, every year when B Dot puts out that list, there's rappers that are like extremely salty every time. And it's not like it's some respected publication. It's not like it's, some, definitive, uh, institution of the culture. It's just a guy. And like, saying that in no disrespect to B Dot, I don't know all his credentials. I mean, unfortunately, I only really know of B Dot's name whenever these kind of conversations come up when he puts those lists out there. So, no disrespect to him, but it just seems that these rappers make something that is kind of just to be a bit of fun, and they take it to another level. And I've never understood that. Like, do I agree with the list every time it come out? No. But it's one man's opinion at the end of the day. Even I'm promoting my top 20, my top 10 list of rap albums from 2022, and I always stress that it is my favorite list. It's my albums that I enjoyed, that I really took a lot from, or was always in constant rotation throughout the year. Like, I always make it a point to say that this list is just my opinion. I don't really try to make it like this is the definitive list, because whether you have a room full of 10, 15, 20 people, or it's just you by yourself, nobody's going to be able to listen to, hear, and like digest all the music that comes out over the year. And that's the same thing with movies and television. And so many artists and so many great artists that you probably never heard of just because they never hit your radar. And even with the internet making it a lot easier for you to discover artists or discover music or discover just whatever it is, like just to you able to discover this stuff uh, a lot easier because of the internet. It's still a lot of stuff that just falls through the cracks, that just never hits your table. Like there's plenty of albums that I'm just now, after I did that list, just now getting a chance to listen to from 2022. Some albums that came out way earlier in the year that I'm just now hearing about, and I'm just now getting a chance to listen to, that probably would have made my list if I would have listened to them in a time where not only I could listen to it but enjoy it. Like I could listen to an album for a couple of days, and it just doesn't hit the same as an album I've been listening to all year and really enjoyed. But to get back to the topic at hand, it's just that these lists come out and they try to be this definitive best of, like, and then you look at the list and I could see people get emotional immediately. Like I remember a lot of people putting out videos reacting to the top 200 singers when it dropped, and there was some notable admissions like Celine Dion and Madonna, and there was some people that were ranked crazy. I remember the thing that I heard people talking about was that Michael Jackson was number 86, and other singers like The Weeknd or Ariana Grande were either placed really high or people didn't really feel like they belonged on the list at all. Now I'm not here to say whether or not any of that is true, but that's the thing. It's like you don't really know, and I think because I have a problem with, and I think I want to talk about this in a separate video because I could kind of get into that in a whole nother thing, but it kind of fits with this where I've always had a problem with the GOAT conversation. It's fun for barbershop talk and, when you're amongst your friends and, you get around certain circles and have these conversations. Like, it's really cool to try to say, okay, these are my favorite rappers, or I feel like these are the best. But once you try to, like, really quantify it and try to say that this person is the greatest of all time, and these conversations could get violent sometimes. Then when you try to, like, try to, and I'm exaggerating. It can get violent, but I'm just exaggerating. Um, people really get passionate about who their favorite rappers are, who the best are, and things like that. It goes with a lot, and there's really no definitive way to quantify any of this. And I think that's why the passion really, seeps out whenever these lists get published. Some people try to say that, oh, well, the people that put together these top 100 most influential rap albums or the greatest rap albums or the best rappers and singers or like just a bunch of like uncultured white folks just sitting in a boardroom and you're trying to talk about something like hip hop that is predominantly a black institution. And to that, I say, yeah. But I think even if you got the most qualified black people you could think of to get in the room, I don't think they could put together a list that at least the majority of people would agree with. Because when it comes to who's the best rapper, who's the best singer, like there's no, because music and art in general is just so subjective that it's really hard to try to like nail down what you think is the best. I mean, even something like a sport, like when you think about basketball, people always talk about basketball and who's the greatest player of all time. And even with that, where you can look at numbers, you can look at stats, number of championships, number of triple doubles, uh, number of uh, playoff appearances, finals appearances. You could talk about all of that. Most wins, like most career wins, uh, most points in their entire career. Even looking at that, there are variables that make it hard to just say definitively this person is the best. You got different things like the era they played in. Like, I don't care how much y'all want LeBron James in his prime to play against Michael Jordan in his prime. The fact is, it'll never happen. You would have to invent time travel to get both of those men in their prime on the same court together and to really see if one would just outdo the other. There's no way to do it. It's a generational thing. It's rules and conditioning. Like, there's a lot of things that factor in that makes it really hard to take a guy playing now and try to say definitively he's better than a guy that played in the 80s or he's a guy that played better in the 90s. It's just really hard to do. And even with something like sports, that you can have, actual numbers to look at and try to make a decision, and you still can't. What makes you think something like hip hop can be done? Can be done the same way. There's a lot of people that think, like I saw, most recently, like people really got heated under a post where somebody just said Lil Wayne is the best rapper alive. Hit post, left it alone, and then all these people were like passionately going at it. Like there's people making their own posts on their own pages. There's people under the comments going back and forth, and People bring up stuff like album sales, or they bring up, how much music they were able to put out and how much of it hit. They talk about just taking examples of lyrics and songs, like as far as creativity goes. And even that, like it's never gonna go anywhere. Nobody's ever gonna be able to agree, because it really comes down to what's important to you. A rapper selling like a billion records doesn't really tell me that he's the best rapper alive. You were just the guy that had the better market. And the guy who sold a billion records could, theoretically be like this super talented rapper. But if I come around you and you talking about who's the greatest MC, Biggie, Jay-Z, or Nas, and I come out of the woodwork and I say, Jizza from Wu-Tang, like, if you've never listened to Jizza from the Wu-Tang, or you've never listened to Witch Doctor, or you've never like sat down and dissect a verse from uh MF Doom or Lupe Fiasco, you don't even have a reference point, so you completely dismiss my opinion. I was that kid growing up. I was the guy that would uh join the conversation about who's the best rapper, and it would always happen after like Jay-Z drop a new album, or Nas drop a new album, or like I don't know, maybe somebody did, like when the Notorious movie came out and everybody brought up the discussion of Biggie being the best rapper. You know, somebody like Lupe put out an album that I was really into, or I listened to an MF Doom like mixtape, or Rock Marciano or somebody like that, and then just be like, nah, these are the best rappers. And a lot of the people around me, especially at that age, didn't really have a reference point. And this is before the internet became what it was. So, like, yeah, you might have heard such and such, but like the conversation isn't there. Social media isn't there. Like, you're not on the hip hop blogs like that searching for rappers you don't know. It's just all about getting more into the rappers you do respect. So that's really kind of what happens with these lists. Yeah, uh, these people don't really know what they're talking about. These people sit around, and then it's all about, at the end of the day, trying to get as much engagement. But before you sit there and get like super passionate about them getting it wrong, or you don't agree with this list, just remember that your 200 list, I think everybody will shit on it too. And then, as a final point before I wrap this up, you can't make a satisfying list of a top 200 anything. I don't care if they would have gotten the order completely right. I don't care. It's at some point you're gonna start caping for people that probably shouldn't be there to fill out a 200 slot. Rap album. There are so many rap albums, but it's only so many rap albums you could say are the most influential. There's only so many rappers you could call the greatest before things start to get a little messy. That's just one of those things. I feel like, and this is my last point about it. I feel like when they put together these lists, they use these large numbers, one, to try to like cover every spectrum, but also I think is to try their best to satisfy everything, to try to satisfy everybody. And because of that, that also, trying to please everyone, you're gonna piss off everyone. Nobody's gonna be happy with this. And that's all I got to say about it. Thank you so much again for 600 subscribers. Let's hit that 1,000 before the spring. Uh, I put out a video not too long ago saying that, hey, I'm down to do the videos, as in reply videos. So if not only can you leave a comment under the video and let me know how you feel, but if you feel like you have a compelling argument, if you have, some more information that I wasn't privy to, that you could bring to the table and maybe have a counterpoint to my argument, then yes, let's get on the video, let's hook it up and discuss it. I'm always open to change my opinion when presented with new information. I'm not like a brick wall. Like, I do receive like new information uh, willingly whenever I feel like, hey, this is something that I need to take into account. But until next time, it's your boy Vinnie-Dangerous, 1430. Much love.